Hello, Senior Rally Day. I'm Kevin Prindiville. I'm the Executive Director of Justice and Aging. I want to thank you for all that you're doing today and every day to lift up the voices and needs and perspectives and expertise of older adults in your communities, in your families, and all across this country. We need your advocacy now more than ever for several reasons. First of all, as you know, California is growing older as a state. By 2030, 25% of the state is going to be made up of people 65 and over. Almost 10 million older adults will be living in California by 2030. So that's why the state is now about halfway through its master plan for aging, which makes this the second reason for critical advocacy. We're 5 years in to the master plan, and we have about 5 years left to deliver for older adults in California the best aging experience of anywhere in the country. Now, unfortunately, that is being made more difficult by two things. The first is that, like all Californians, older adults are living through an affordability crisis. It's getting harder and harder to afford the basic things that we all need while living in this state and living in this country. So, older adults are impacted by this affordability crisis. Then, the other thing we're facing is a federal government that is making life more unaffordable instead of more affordable, particularly for older people. The federal government has spent the last year and a half, policymakers in Washington, D.C. have been attacking the very programs that we all rely on to meet basic needs, but especially older adults. Attacks on Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and SSI and the Older Americans Act and housing programs. All these ways that the federal government is making it harder for people to get the help that they need instead of easier. So that's why right now, your advocacy is incredibly important. It's important that in California, even while these attacks come at the federal level, we as a state are living up to our values. That we're creating a state where all ages and all stages of life are welcome and supported. A state where all of us can afford to grow old in the homes and communities and neighborhoods and families that we grew up in and lived in and worked in and contributed to throughout our lives. We should be able to afford to grow old in the places that we call home in the state of California. So your advocacy to make that point now is super important. In order to deliver that reality for people, we need to improve California's long-term services and support system. We need to be investing in LTSS, especially in programs that help people get the care they need while staying at home and in the community. We need to make housing more affordable for older adults. Older adults remain the fastest growing part of the homeless population in California. That's not right. We can do something about it. We must do something about it. We have to address this affordability crisis that's impacting all people, including older adults. And third, we have to address affordability writ large. We have to provide economic security for all of us as we age. We need to make healthcare more affordable. We need to make food more affordable. We need to address affordability, especially for older adults that are middle income and low income that are struggling the most to get by. We need in California to be pushing back at this critical moment as policymakers in Sacramento are debating next year's budget for the state. We need to push back on any cuts to programs that help older adults. We need to especially push back on proposals that are cutting in-home supportive services and other home and community-based services programs. And we need to reject any proposals that make healthcare more unaffordable. Instead, we need our policymakers to be supporting the legislation that's out there to keep healthcare affordable, to make healthcare more affordable, even in the face of these federal attacks that are cutting Medicaid, reducing premium subsidies. In California, we need to continue to lead to make sure that all of us can get the care that we need, can afford the care that we need and want in our families and communities. There could not be a more critical time for your advocacy and for all of us to be working together to make sure that the expertise, the perspectives, the concerns of older adults are in front of, top of mind of, and unavoidable for policymakers in Washington, D.C., in Sacramento, and all across the state. So keep up the advocacy, keep up doing what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing, and we'll be right there alongside with you at Justice and Aging. Thank you.